Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast of Storm, where socially awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Nerdy Occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello everyone, I am very sleepy, but that should make me more angry, thus this should be more interesting. Yay.
And I am your host / Time Lord wannabe, the Brainstormer of pop culture. How is everyone doing tonight?
Good but sleepy, as previously stated.
I kind of feel the same. I mean, I feel like I believe I am a lot more energetic than you, Dalton.
At the moment, yes.
Right.
Which is probably a good thing, because one of us needs to be the energetic one. Which doesn't preclude me from becoming energetic when we face the frankly Lovecraftian levels of unknowable stupidity that we are going to be facing at some point tonight. But yeah.
Okay, so our first topic is, well, give me one moment to pull it up. Right, okay, so this is from Bounding into Comics. This is Star Wars story group writer Matt Martin. Star Wars canon is all fake anyway. This is written by John F. Trent, published May 11th, 2020.
Okay. I'm gonna have to philosophically spurg about this, I can already tell, but I'm going to contain the spurg until the appropriate moment. So I'm not going to lash out at the title. However, if he says it as flippantly as the title suggests he says it, then you, sir, are a dumbass the size of Jupiter, and I want you to know that you make everything in the universe worse when you use your brain for such terrible, terrible acts.
Mm-hmm. I maybe might, because I read a little bit of this when Dalton sent it to me. You sent it to me, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. I read a little bit of it, and I might be playing devil's advocate, in a sense.
No, again, I will freely admit that there is a possibility that I am wrong, and that he is not a dumbass the size of a large gas planet. However, that would at least require them to take this out of context. But if it is in the context that the title suggests it's in, then I affirm my statement, and he's a dumbass the size of Jupiter, and he makes the world worse by using his brain for such things.
So, shall we move on?
We shall.
Yeah.
Make your arguments, sir, and may God or whoever the fuck is listening have mercy on yourself.
Star Wars story group member Matt Martin, love the devil alliteration, by the way, recently declared that fans can pick and choose what is canon in Star Wars because it's all fake anyway. Now, again, that's not the full quote, so I'm not in. It could be taken out of context.
It is possible, but things are not looking good thus far.
Again, I'll start a little bit. I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, he doesn't mean fake. It's fiction all anyway, right? And
Okay, but the issue with him being this flippant is that no one was making an empirical claim. Nobody was making a claim about reality. No one was deferring to realism as a standard. They were referring to logic as a standard. This is the thing. Even fiction is beholden to the standards of logic, because the standards of logic do not give a shit about the empirical laws of reality. Reality occurs essentially after logic. Logic is the object, reality or physicality is the shadow cast by the laws of logic. So even fiction is beholden to the laws of logic. Therefore, you can't just dismiss this on the grounds that it's fake anyway, because no one was making a claim about reality. No one was saying this is totally a thing that happened and is not fake. We are aware that it is essentially a construct made entirely out of ideas. However, because ideas still belong to the plane of rationality and logic, they are still beholden to the laws of logic. They are not beholden to the laws of reality because, as we just established,
Okay.
no one is deferring to reality as the standard.
Don't.
Go ahead.
I think I do think you're reaching a little bit, and what I believe he is stating is okay. I don't even know how to word this, but I do think it's kind of a blown out of proportions kind of deal here. And to kind of prove my point, I want to continue. Shall we?
Go ahead.
All right. As reported by Disney, Star Wars is dumb. Martin's most recent comments came after a fan asked him to clarify his previous comments regarding Star Wars canon. Martin has discussed Star Wars canon in length. Back in April, he responded to a fan who asked about treating the old Genndy Tartakovsky version of Clone Wars as canon. He wrote, "I am of the mind you can consider anything you want canon if it makes you happy."
Okay, now here is where I'm going to.
Oh, hold on. He added, for the most part, it still works, but there are some contradictions with other storytelling if you really care.
Okay, at least he tethered things back to some kind of rational standard. But in my opinion, no, you can't just do things because they make you happy. I can't just choose to believe that the sky is made of cotton candy because it is not so empirically, nor would it be so logically.
Okay, Dalton, I think you're reaching on the fact that uh, you're looking at it too grand scope. I think we should just kind of keep it contained the to the mention of like Star Wars canon and that stuff.
Right, but what I'm reacting to negatively is the principle he's espousing. He's essentially espousing, well, nothing matters anyway, so do what you want. And I disagree with both halves of that statement. You can't just do whatever you want because things do matter, and things do matter, therefore, it's not a good idea to just go mad, do whatever you want. That is reckless on a logical level. If you were applying this to reality, it would be reckless on an empirical level, but we're not. So I'm restricted to this makes no sense logically. And I very much insist that things do make sense logically, at least on some level.
Okay. So I'll share my thoughts when we have more to talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Earlier in April, Martin shared an article from IO9 which declared that our fascination with canon is killing the way we value stories. Did we cover that?
Yes, we did.
Okay. I barely remember it, to be honest.
It was a couple weeks ago, I think. Like a month and a half, maybe.
Well, it says April, early in April, so.
Yeah, but I don't think we covered it until like March-ish. Because I remember being a little bit late to the party on that one and going like, why the fuck didn't we cover this?
Mm, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So the tweet here says, yes. Everyone should read this. It's a much more articulate way of discussing something I've often tried to crunch down into 280 characters. That's why I choose not to answer or give frustratingly vague questions to many questions thrown my way here on Twitter.
Okay. See, if you're if you're holding up that article as an example of what you mean, then I'm going to have to hold you to my issues with that article, which are that the reason why canon matters is because people want meritocracy. They want logical consistency because no one is making an empirical claim, they are making logical ones. And because ideas are by their very nature held to logical standards, not empirical ones, that means that irrespective of any external reality whatsoever, i.e., it doesn't matter whether this exists or doesn't exist, it matters if it makes goddamn sense in such a way that value can be derived from it in a coherent and substantive way. And if you're essentially going throw caution to the wind because my subjectivity, then you may take a crystal from the center of the Arctic Circle and fuck yourself with it sodomistically.
Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
In the article, James Whitbrook writes, this craving for canon, above all else, is a toxic attitude, not just to the way we talk about pieces of media from a critical perspective, but in fan circles as well.
And again, replying to Mr. Woodbrook in the same way I suspect that I replied to him when we covered this. No. If anything, the hold everything equal to zero rampant subjectivity is okay and nothing ever has to even be considered to have mattered is a toxic attitude if ever there is one. Because when you reduce the entire value of the world and or logic to zero, then essentially you wind up in a world where even the things that led you to nihilism are themselves irrelevant, and therefore why on God's green earth or any other should you subscribe to the idea of nihilism? It is the very definition of a philosophical zero-sum game. Like, you will never gain anything from this, and you will actively lose a bunch of shit. And what's more, if you apply it on an existential scale, you rob other people of all their shit. And that I have an issue with. Because at that point, you're not just saying, I don't think anything matters. You're saying, you're stupid if you think anything matters. And that is a stupid statement. Not to mention a philosophically and basically existentially annoying one. Moving on.
He elaborates, the hunger for facts above all else leads to things like filler episode, becoming a derogatory term for stories that don't advance the larger ongoing plot of a narrative or don't include some shocking new relation that someone can add to a list.
Because if you are consuming something, whether that something be an actual object or a narrative, any part of that object or product or narrative or concept that is non-substantive actively cheapens it. It creates a void where otherwise there would be no void. And considering the entire point of a story is to be a thing of substance and not a thing of void, that is bullshit. If you buy a product, whether buying in this case means financially buying something or just buying into the premise of an idea, you want that idea to hold up, to be substantive. And if there are giant gaping holes where there is no substance to be had, then you have done fucked up. And it is not the viewer's job to fix your bullshit for you. It is your job as the person through whom these ideas are channeled to do better at your job, considering your only job is to be good at being a channel for substantive ideas, essentially, and putting them in a coherent order, such that they can be understood and consumed by things that are rational minds. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. Whitbrook goes on to write, the need robs discussions about stories we get of nuance and interpretation, because who cares what you think happened when there's an answer from the Word of God to that question you might have had. And
Well,
more
yes,
cynical.
okay. There is actually let him finish, and then I'll say my piece.
And more sinisterly, beyond the way it shapes our discourse, it's a craving that further enmeshes our love of a world not to the world itself, but to the masters behind that world.
Okay, I do have sort of devil's advocate things to say on this one because I, for one, don't think the author should be the end all and be all of what happens in a story. I think the author is in most ways beholden to the idea more so than the idea is beholden to the author. I think the job of an author is to essentially be kind of like a medium to do what Michelangelo always said he used to do with sculpture, to chip away all the incoherent bits and bring out the sculpture that already existed within the marble, as it were. So no, I don't think the author should be treated like God in the case of canon. However, the desire for canon, for substance and coherency, does override your whims of what you think happened. If you are not going to hold yourself to any kind of logical standard, then you are a putz and you deserve to be treated essentially like a putz. Now, that isn't to say you should be mocked or derided or even insulted like I just did, but if you come up with complete bullshit and someone very eloquently and succinctly explains to you why your perspective in this instance is likely to be complete bullshit, you don't get to say, stop policing my perspective, who, and you don't get to sarcastically say, well, who cares what you think happened? Well, if you aren't capable of putting actual thought into your thinking, then you are not thinking properly. Because if you think without actual coherent thoughts in your head, then you're not actually thinking very well now, are you? You are essentially using the material of thought, but you're doing the equivalent of putting some random ingredients in a bowl and then throwing that bowl at the wall until the batter slimes down said wall. You're not actually producing a cake of logical coherency in that case. I realize that was a rather tortured metaphor. Forgive me, I'm fucking sleepy. But you know what I'm saying. If you're not going to bother to make your thinking coherent, then it strains credulity to say in a lot of ways that you're even thinking. And if someone comes along and explains to you why the things you're thinking are essentially kind of using your own cognition, then that is kind of your problem, not theirs. Sorry.
Okay.
I am kind of annoyed that this article is more about the IO9 article, it seems, than what Matt Martin actually said. Now, granted, like I said, I'm fully willing to, since he endorsed this article, to hold him to the same standards as I held that article. However, we already covered the IO9 article, so I feel like we're sort of repeat. Now, granted, it's probably been long enough that we have different perspective, we have different stuff to say than we did the first time round, but it might get a little bit repetitive. I'll have to go back and rewatch the episode where we actually covered that.
Mm-hmm. All right, and discussing the article, Martin declared canon should be an added bonus, but not the end-all be-all of a story. The EU is no less good now than it was before due to the fact that it's no longer canon. That didn't change the stories. No, but I guess I really shouldn't have taken Devil's Advocate because when I really
But
should.
you don't actually have to take Devil's Advocate if you don't feel like taking Devil's Advocate anymore. Let the record show that the honorable gentleman concedes the point and fails to represent his client, the devil. Bang bang. As the word of court. I always, whenever anyone calls themselves the devil's advocate, I always imagine like the devil in handcuffs in a courtroom and somebody having to be his lawyer or something. Which, by the way, there's a really good movie called The Devil's Advocate that essentially has that premise. It's really good, actually. Al Pacino was the devil in that, and if you know Al Pacino, you know just how awesome the phrase Al Pacino as the devil can be.
Yep. All right. So, well, what I was going to say is the thing that I was going to bring up something about headcanon, but this guy, yeah, I should have read more of it before considering. Anyway, moving on. What I was going to say is the whole thing he just said, canon should be an added bonus. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think it's more of how great stories kind of connect when they're in a wider range. No.
I would go so far as to say all he just said there ultimately was the EU should still be canon. If canonicity is like the benchmark we hold things to, and again, I've given my reasons as to why it should be, then if anything, the thing that differentiates canon from non-canon shouldn't be some arbitrary the author said so. It should be the merits, i.e., I don't care how badly Thomas Harris fucked up Hannibal Lecter's backstory. I'm not considering Hannibal Rising canon to the Hannibal Lecter series because it was fucking foobar and stupid and ruined one of my favorite characters. However, like how the author of the book Who Framed Roger Rabbit, after having seen the movie adaptation, decided to actually change how his universe worked because he liked the way the movie did it better. The ultimate standard should essentially be what idea holds more coherency, what idea is more substantively valid, as determined by as many independent calculations, i.e., as many people's independent notions as possible. So yeah, if anything, this is just an argument for fuck the new canon because the new canon fails to meet the basic criteria of canondom, and we're keeping the EU because it is better and essentially the literary equivalent of evolution, the survival of the fittest for consumption, and in this case, the EU was more fit for consumption than the new canon. So fuck it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we should just get rid of the idea of canonicity altogether. If anything, it just proves how useful the idea of canonicity can be. Because canonicity, as in this case, is very often tied into concepts like substantiveness, coherency, and meritocracy, which are good things that we should not, under any circumstances, get the fuck rid of, at least in principle. Obviously, these aren't perfect things, and there will be failings involved in them, but in principle, objectivity, coherency, and substantiveness, and logic, and meritocracy are good things, and we should keep them.
Right. And also the whole, because again, the EU wasn't even, it was fine itself, but I think it does have issues.
The EU definitely had errors. When you talk of the EU, there's definitely argument to be made as to what exactly you are talking about, because there are aspects of the EU that contradict other aspects of the EU. So, in my opinion, what Disney should have done is taken as many aspects of the EU that cohere together as possible and use that as the basis. It would have pleased the fan base, it would have made Disney oodles more money than they've already made, and it would have actually made their jobs a fuck ton of a load easier. But no, they decided to push Sisyphus Boulder down the mountain and try to pull it all the way back up by themselves, and they failed miserably.
All right, so we have a tweet here. Sean Ferguson, you're right. The two different continuities issue is a problem, but I think that's a separate issue. I don't think fans should dump anything not assigned as canon, but I do have to admit that canon gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling. Matt Martin says that's exactly it. Canon should be yeah.
I disagree purely on the basis of priorities. I think if anything else, the other shit that he's advocating for should be an afterthought, and canon should be at least a starting point. Now, you can have any number of reasons why you consider things canon, and this is the point at which I start advocating this is where everyone should have as good an understanding of themselves and their opinions as possible, and we should go at it essentially in a debate format, and whoever can argue their point the best gets to determine what canon is for that particular moment. And if someone else comes up with a better idea, then that should be determined, and so on and so on. This is yet another thing that can be resolved with know thyself, know thy own framework, and then defend thy own framework with logic, reason, and shit.
Mm-hmm.
All hail self-knowledge, self-awareness, and logic. Once again.
All right, so moving on. More recently, Martin was asked about canonizing the original animated Battle of Coruscant. He responded, "I personally don't really see the point of recanonizing things. If that version doesn't contradict anything, pretty sure it's clear, then anyone who likes it can consider it a part of their Star Wars story. But it leaves open the opportunity to retell it in the future."
See, I didn't actually know that the animated Clone Wars wasn't canon to the computer animated Clone Wars until somebody mentioned it to me. So
I honestly, and I remember watching it. It's been a while, and I probably should rewatch it again. But I think overall, most of it honestly works.
yeah, for the most part, it seems to line up pretty well. So I don't see any reason why you can't consider both canon. Now, if someone who is more spurgy in relation to this topic than me wants to give me a detailed list of things that are substantively, and I use the keyword substantively, different in animated Clone Wars v. computer animated Clone Wars, then please provide me with that list and I will reevaluate my position. But for the most part, they seem to coexist fine, so I consider them kind of companion theories, if anything.
I'm looking at a link that's like right under that tweet, like a different article. Maul voice actor Sam Witwer dunks on Rian Johnson. You can't reinvent Star Wars without knowing Star Wars first.
And I never thought I would say this, but point to Darth Maul. These are very strange times we're living in. I am now officially agreeing with a Sith Lord on something, and
I mean, philosophically, I think you can agree with the Sith on some level.
well, I've always been an advocate of both sides are stupid because they're absolutist pricks, and there needs to be some kind of gray area in the middle, which incidentally was where the ancient predecessor of both, the Jedi, started from. So if anything, we should return to a more knowledgeable position of the Jedi.
Yep.
But yeah, I find myself agreeing with Darth Maul on something, and these are strange times. But here, my lord.
Alright. He would add, fans generally put too much emphasis on what the company deems official. If you like the animated version, I do, then there's no reason to value it less just because it's not canon, you know?
See, I don't think most people who argue over canon argue over what the company says. They argue over what is logically coherent. Which is why so many people, when the EU was erased from canon, flipped shit. Not because Disney is the God Emperor authority over Star Wars or anything, but because A, it means that from a business level and an artistic level, they weren't going to continue with the EU, which pisses people off. And B, they just essentially asserted authority they didn't have over canon. And given that many of the choices they made in their attempt at usurping canon are less coherent and less substantive than the pre-existing canon, people justifiably flip shit. But it's even more than that about this is a fundamental logical error you've done. You have no authority to just erase an idea from existence like that, and you tried to anyway. And that corporate greed at its finest, I think, was a lot of people's issue. A lot of people's issue was, why didn't you just make money off of like Mara Jade and EU Luke and the Night Sisters and all of the great shit from the expanded canon? Why did you erase it all to try and start from scratch to essentially create a Disney-fied version? And we have yet to be given an actual good answer to that question because Disney screwed the pooch. See, this is the thing, when you meddle with canon, the only positive way out of canon is to create something better than what you're replacing. And because Disney failed at that, so historically people are stridently addicted to their canon because they haven't been presented with a better option. They haven't been presented with any reason why the new quote unquote canon should usurp the old canon. Therefore, they default to the old canon because the old canon made more sense primarily and was more valuable to them. Moving on.
Okay, so. Alright, so Matt would then be questioned about these comments, with one fan asking for some clarity. Martin answered, stating, I think the point that I was making was that what is and isn't canon informs how future stories may be told, but it doesn't need to dictate how individual fans enjoy their own personal Star Wars story.
I mean, it probably should on some level, because if you say logically incoherent things about things that are by their very nature dependent on logic, and you end up getting called out for that, that's on you, not on the person doing the calling out, unfortunately. You can't just will things away, because unfortunately, just because I ignore the 50-foot elephant in the room doesn't mean there isn't a 50-foot elephant in the room. Now, if there's a 50-foot elephant in any room, I would wonder what the fuck the person in question is doing, but you get my point. You can't just will these things out of existence if for no other reason than other people than you exist, and you have to deal with those people. And even if you didn't have to deal with people, there's still the matter of cognitive dissonance, which I don't think you'll be able to sweep under the rug so easily. And self-knowledge and logical consistency are to be strived for generally. So, yeah, you can't just simply wishing does not make it so, even in fiction, unfortunately. That is the fundamental sad truth of it.
Um, it continued, but if there was an opportunity to tell that story now, that new creator would not be beholden to the old version of the story.
Okay, but they still probably wouldn't be beholden to a story if the story they told was better. This happens all the time. Like, for example, Wesley Dobbs and Hector Hall predate Dream of the Endless in terms of writing continuity for Sandman. However, when you think of DC Sandman, you think of Dream of the Endless because Neil Gaiman was the channel for some truly great ideas in that particular instance. If if you want your canon to trump the old canon, then all you need to do is make canon that's better than the previous canon, and people will get to work rationalizing and retconning where they need to make your new canon make sense. Or someone else will tell a bridge story that explains how both things are true, which is my preferred way of retconning. I don't like a you thought this happened, but this is what actually happened version of retconning. I like both of these things are technically true because of this third piece of information that you didn't have at the time. That's the kind of retconning I prefer. Because it's inclusive rather than exclusive. It creates more rather than destroying something that previously existed. Again, using Sandman as an example. Moving on.
Martin then summarized. So, to summarize, there is a reason that we need to internally know what is and isn't canon so we can keep our line of official storytelling as aligned as possible, but that doesn't mean fans can't individually pick and choose what they want to accept as true.
As long as they do so based on reason. That is the one caveat I will always add to what he's saying. Because he seems to be saying that people can make these decisions purely based on caprice and subjectivity, and to that I disagree. But if you actually use some kind of rationale to jump from this I think is canon and this I also think is canon, then I have no problem with it, as long as you're playing by the rules of this makes logically coherent fucking sense.
Moving on, because Martin then noted that it's all fake anyway, so you can choose to accept whatever you want as part of the story.
And my issue with that flippancy, like I said, is you're essentially undermining the worth of something it's just because it's non-empirical. And that would be a fair point if we were talking empiricism, but we're not talking empiricism. We're talking in the realm of logic and rationality. Therefore, since no one is making an empirical claim, empirical dismissal doesn't really work. And the only way you can dismiss something on logical grounds is either by rationally explaining why it doesn't make sense or by sheer authoritative, I don't like this because my emotions, dismissing it. And given that it seems like you're doing the second one there, you can fuck off. You can't just declare, well, this doesn't really matter because I say so without any reasoning. You can't make you can't just declare things, you can't just assert things. You have to actually have a reason for the thing you're thinking, because ideas by their very nature are beholden to logic. Whether or not they defer to any existing reality, they still hold the laws of logic, because as far as we are aware, the laws of logic are omniversal. No matter what universe you find yourself in, what we define as one will still combine with another thing we define as one and get two. These things are constant in no matter what universe we're in.
He concluded, if you choose to only accept the real official canon, cool. If you like to mix and match between continuities, cool. If you like to make up your own stories, also cool.
As long as you're rational. again, the only caveat I keep having to add, because it seems like his version of this is because my subjectivity, and I'm gonna shoot that down no matter how many times I see it.
This looks like Martin is just making excuses for Disney's abomination of a sequel trilogy. A trilogy that utterly ruined Luke Skywalker and turned him into a man who premeditated the attempted murder of his nephew. A trilogy that fundamentally changed Luke from a man who was willing to sacrifice his life in order to save the soul of his father from the dark side and turned him into a coward.
Okay, I don't think that Martin is directly implying that. That being said, I do think that's some of the unfortunate implications of his statement. But I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that he is actually doing that on purpose or even unintentionally. I think if anything, this happened inadvertently.
Yeah, let's say
Never attribute to malice what can adequately be explained by incompetence. And what I'm seeing here is incompetence, not even subconscious or unintentional malice.
Yeah. I'm just reading what's left of the article. Would-be murderer hiding on a remote island that allowed his nephew's soul to become corrupted by the dark side. Martin's statement about the stories being fake anyways doesn't make sense. Yes, the story is fantasy, but the stories are real. And the world that George Lucas created with his imagination was brought to life on the big screen. A world that's set about showing us a number of rules.
Like I said, nobody is making an empirical claim. What we're making are logical claims because ideas are, by their very nature, beholden to logical claims, even if they pertain to no external reality or no external authority. And the thing about the word fake is it implies dismissal or invalidation. And it essentially, because we're talking in rational rather than empirical terms, essentially arbitrating the authority behind one statement over the other, unless it's derived from logical mechanisms, is complete bullshit. It's essentially waving a wand and being like, I, the aristocrat on high, declare that this thing is valid and this thing is not valid, therefore this thing I've declared is not valid doesn't get to defend itself anymore. It's essentially the Roman emperor going, this thing gets fed to the lions because I say so, and this thing doesn't get fed to the lions because also I say so. And unfortunately, my emperor, nobody cares what you authoritate. The only thing that matters in the realm of ideas is logic. Authority is meaningless unless that authority is derived by the mechanism of logic in this case.
Yeah, I think the rest of this article is just like opinion piece, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Many of the rules were thrown to the wind. Jedi now use Force Slice, Lightning. Force ghosts are physically interacting with the world. Ships are able to hyperspace ram other jets.
Okay, since this argument is about the Star Wars canon, I'm going to get my nerd on and my geek on. Technically, and I hate sounding like a complete asshole, but you opened this Pandora's box and this is what's inside it. The Jedi could use several variations of Force Lightning. One was called Force Judgment, which was weaker than Force Lightning because it essentially relied on righteous indignation rather than rage and anger. And the other was called Emerald Lightning, which was unique in the sense that A, it was green instead of like the range of lightning colors, and B, it sapped the life force of its target rather than actively destroying them. So essentially, it was a kind of force lightning that could lull your opponent to sleep or knock your opponent out rather than making them be all decrepit and electrocuted.
Mm.
It's the ticklish version of force lightning, essentially. It's the I'm going to defeat you with the power of love version of force lightning.
The Force Ghost being able to physically interact with the world.
Force Ghosts pretty much could always interact with the whole metaphysics behind Force Ghosts was essentially that they are the entire Force now. So if Yoda decides as a Force Ghost, that planet destroyed shall be, that planet is going to fall out of the sky inextricably, even though the laws of gravity dictate otherwise. Because that's basically always been how Force Ghosts work.
Planet fall out of the sky.
There's actually stuff in the EU to suggest that Yoda actually did bring down the debris of the Death Star to specific areas.
No, you said planet out of the sky.
Yeah, planet can just fall out of the sky because Force Ghosts want it to, essentially.
But a
they are the
planet
Force.
is in the sky, though.
Hmm?
The planet isn't in a sky, though. It's in space.
Well, if we're talking like empty space is basically all sky, is what I meant.
No, but isn't the sky that of a world?
No, I would say that sky is the upper voids that at various times has planets and stars and shit in it. So yeah, when you leave the planet, you essentially go into the sky and you remain in the sky until you find another planet. So yeah, a planet can be taken out of the sky if a Force Ghost wants it, because a Force Ghost is essentially just a node or a nexus of the entire Force and can tap into the entire Force if they want. That's why Obi-Wan was going off about, if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. He wasn't just being extremely vague and enlightenist and mystical. He was also saying, you do realize that if you kill me, I'll just become the entire goddamn Force, and the entire goddamn Force will have a mind in it that wants personally to fuck over you, right? He was also being enlightenist and mystical and woo because he was a Jedi, and Jedi are sort of half Buddhist, half Roman Stoic, but he was also being literal in a way, in the same way as he both lied and didn't lie to Luke because something, my point of view.
Mm-hmm. And the hyperspace ramming other, ships, unable to hyperspace ram other ships.
Why wasn't that, are we sure that wasn't a thing in the original canon? Because there's no, unless there's some weird physics in the Star Wars universe that I'm not aware of, aside from the Force, which is metaphysics, so I'm not even including that. Unless there's some weird aspect of physics in the Star Wars universe that I'm not aware of, why wouldn't that make sense? That's always been my issue with hyperspace jumps and shit like that. What's stopping you from hitting a star at light speed? Because the problem with being in light speed is because you're literally running at the same speed as the light around you, you might hit something before you can actually see it. So what's stopping you from ramming accidentally into a star or a planet or something at light speed?
Most of space doesn't have a lot in it, actually.
Well, that's true. And there are also targeting computers that I imagine would handle something like light speed. Yeah. So if they knew a planet was there, they'd take a path to avoid it or something. But what's to stop somebody from doing what Dooku did to I think it was Kamino in Attack of the Clones, and just deleting an entire system from the archives, and then bam, somebody accidentally light speeds themselves into Kamino accidentally.
I think the main issue with that in The Last Jedi is simply the writing of it.
Yeah, no, it's written very, very stupidly. Don't take this to mean I'm defending the new canon. Please, for the love of God, the new canon sucks and betrays basically everything about Star Wars.
Ironically, the only new canon that is good is the stuff that touches upon the dark times.
You know what? There is one aspect of the new canon that I genuinely do prefer to the old canon. Before, kyber crystals were just sort of whatever the color they were because random. Whereas now the color is directly tied into sort of the mystical aura or the personality aura of the Force user, like the way the person uses the Force.
Yeah.
And it always bothered me that the principal weapon of an entirely mystical sect of like space monks would rely so explicitly on something that was basically exclusively technology. But with the new retcon of the crystals kind of tying the crystals of the lightsaber into the Force directly, that sort of softens that a little bit. It's still mostly technology, but there is still that part of it that's mystical in nature at the heart of it.
Yeah, there was actually a theory that talked about like the dark saber and the kyber crystal of it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's a kyber crystal that is like a dead in the Force. It's why it's dark.
Interesting.
I mean, the theory also provides the example of when it's ever being swung, it looks like it's absorbing the light, like a black hole.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting theory. I'm not sure how much stock I put in it. I'd have
Well,
to think about it more.
well, also keep in mind that a red lightsaber with new canon is because the kyber crystal is technically bleeding in the Force.
Yeah, it's dying because it's being forced to bleed to death. Because you basically force all the rage and pain and anger you can into it until it screams, God, not anymore, fuck off.
Yeah. All right. So, all right, as Martin states, you can choose a Star Wars canon you want to believe, but that doesn't mean the canon you choose to believe is actually the true one. It's like saying,
Okay, actually, let that finish, and I'll say my point if he doesn't sit.
it's like saying Sauron won at the end of Lord of the Rings because I choose to believe it. Whatever J.R. Tolkien wrote, be damned. It's what I want to believe, of course. This,
Well, okay, so are you defending arthurial intent or aren't you? Because personally, I don't give a shit what the author thinks. I care what actually makes the slightest lick of sense, independent of any mind, even my own, if that's even possible.
I don't think that's what he's saying. I think it's more of that letting people choose what is and what isn't canon just it causes too many more problems than like a definitive line of canon.
Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah, the whole author. I don't think the author thing is true either. I think it's just more of since the whole Sauron winning at the end because person chooses to believe it. That's honestly just
You can make the argument that um that Lord of the Rings is essentially moot because Melkor already corrupted the universe while it was being made, even though he wasn't able to interfere in the fourth verse of the Song of the Ainur. He still fucked up like the actual. He actually in the Lord of the Rings mythos polluted the earth before Middle Earth was made. Like he polluted the substance that stuff was being made from. So even in a version of the world that he wasn't allowed to actively interfere with, he still fucked up the world because his corruption is still there in the actual substance of it. You can make that argument, and because Sauron was a serpent of Melkor, you could make the argument that Sauron by extension also won ultimately, but
fucking boom
there
bastards.
people who want Sauron to have won at the end of Lord of the Rings. There, I gave you an entirely canonical, entirely logically consistent reason why he did technically. Also, the Shire was destroyed because Saruman is a bitch, and there is that. So yay! Hooray for ambiguously ending trilogies. I guess.
This type of thinking appears to permeate Lucasfilm and Star Wars, given the products they've given us over the last few years. Hardly any of it matches up with the story that turned Star Wars into a cultural phenomenon.
This is true.
Instead, Star Wars is now a sad shell of itself due to people like Martin, people who are supposed to be guiding this Star Wars just not caring because it's all fake anyways. Or even more sinister people who want to use Star Wars to inject their own agenda onto.
Okay, I don't disagree with that part at all. Basically, every aspect of that last paragraph was true.
The past is dead, kill it if you have to, it's all fake anyway. Makes a lot more sense now.
Yep, it's sheer subjectivist nihilism, and I hate it. So yeah, fair enough. Cancer.
Yep.
I'm still mentally grappling with the idea that basically, yeah, ultimately all of the efforts of the ring bearers and everything in Lord of the Rings was in vain because Melkor basically rigged the game from the start. It's funny that he brought that up satirically, but now that I actually think about it, it's kind of true though. So next article, before I get thrown into a well of despair from the fact that Melkor basically rigged everything before the hobbits even got a chance to beat Sauron.
Yeah, 1 second. I do want to mention, since what are your thoughts on those Lord of the Ring games? You know, the Shadow of War series.
Mordor? I've heard of them. I've never really played them. I don't really know any contributions they make to like canon or things of that nature, so I can't really have an opinion on them.
Right. Okay.
Why?
Oh no, I was just asking because I've heard I heard a few things like it's not great simply because of like canon issues.
I will say that it didn't look very good. It basically looked like a D&D type video, like what do they call it? Neverwinter, but with a Lord of the Rings skin on it, or like Skyrim, but with a Lord of the Rings skin on it.
Mm.
And it doesn't look good. And I'm curious how much like magic and stuff you can use in that game, because like in the canon of Lord of the Rings, such as it is, the wizards are basically angelic beings, so you can't really play as one, considering there were only like 5 of them.
See, okay, and I do want to like mention one thing, like with my views on canon itself.
Mm-hmm.
See, my thing is, as long, and it does agree in a sense with you, Don. Like, as long as it makes sense to the wider stories and like either gives context or is just really good and it works in the world, it doesn't conflict with anything else, then I think it would make sense as canon.
Yeah. If you can do it better, then welcome to the halls of canon. If you can't do it better, then welcome to the abyss of non-canon, even if you're the one that originally wrote it, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Okay. So our second topic is something from Neil Gaiman. This is probably like our shortest topic, I'm sure. Basically, there's like an audiobook.
Audible is doing a audiobook rendition of Sandman, which doing audiobooks of comics doesn't really make sense to me because comics have a visual aspect to them. So how the fuck does that make sense? Like the whole thing with books is they're good for audio translations because they don't have a visual aspect of them to them for the most part, aside from like cover art and maybe a couple of illustrations in the book. But comics are like 50% illustration. So are you essentially just doing a dramatic reading of the comic or what?
Yeah. But wait, we're mostly just going to talk about the voice cast for it,
Hmm.
which I think they're only doing like the first 3 volumes, right?
Um, they're starting with Preludes and Nocturnes,
Uh,
but I assume if it does well, they'll do for all 10 of them, and I hope they get the same voice cast for all 10 of them, just for the sake of consistency.
mhm. Right. So, like a little preview here.
Okay, so let's go through each of the choices because they kind of went by there quickly.
Kind of quick.
Yeah,
Trying to get to the first one. All right.
I like the music for the record. Okay, so Riz Ahmed as the Corinthian. Hmm. Okay, first of all, why was the Corinthian listed first?
Oh,
The Corinth the Corinthian is basically kind of a minor. You haven't met the Corinthian yet, I don't think, as far as you've gotten. Basically,
no, I have.
he was in Doll's House, right?
Yep.
And you've gotten all the way up to
Hold on. Let me. Dream Country.
okay, you've gotten all the way up to Dream Country. Okay, fair play. Yeah.
That's kind of.
So
I'm not holding it in my hand. It feels like kind of shorter than the others.
it may be. I've never looked at the individual volumes because I have the beautiful faux leather bound omnibus that basically looks like uh twice the thickness of a Bible, and I love it. Um,
Okay,
anyway,
you show off, but okay, continue.
sorry, I really like those. I got them for Christmas one year, and I really needed them that year because I was very depressed. But yeah, so yeah, from what I've seen of Riz Ahmed, I have no objection to this necessarily.
The only okay, so really the only like I've only seen him in 2 things. First off, is from the Venom movie. He wasn't bad.
Was he the main human baddie in that, the host for Riot? I
Yeah,
think.
Carlton Drake,
Okay, he can do crazy pretty good then. I'm
and
good with that.
he was a side character in Nightcrawler. The Ryan Gyllenhaal, that movie.
Oh yeah, he was the guy who, despite making a movie called Nightcrawler, then proceeded to crap all over comic book movies, and it was the most hilarious thing on the planet for 2 minutes.
What?
Yeah, when he was doing like the Oscar rounds for his Nightcrawler movie, he started talking crap about the superhero genre, and me and maybe 5 other people laughed our asses off because he made a movie called Nightcrawler and was crapping all over comics. Didn't understand the irony.
I
The
find
irony, of course, being Kurt Wagner's Nightcrawler.
yeah, but it's not a Nightcrawler movie. It's
No, but what I'm saying is a man who proceeds to crap all over superhero genre made a movie called Nightcrawler, of all things.
okay,
The irony there is breaking the irony meter.
and it's also ironic because later he would be in a comic book movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no objections. I just haven't seen enough of him to really get a sense of how he would play this character, voice wise, I guess.
He seems to be able to do crazy. I'm hoping he can do otherworldly crazy well. And if he can, then I see no reason why he can't exist in the story for like an eighth of a second. Because that's basically all he's gonna be in the story for, because it essentially gets resolved in, admittedly, one of the better stories, but yeah.
Okay, Cat
Kat Dennings.
as Death. I think she's She looks familiar. I can't. Hold on.
I think she's Marcy in the Thor movies, the Jane's annoying friend there.
And also, I think she's on a show.
Two Broke Girls.
Playing kind of the same character, I believe.
Yeah, basically. I have problems with this. I have many problems with this. Number one,
She's not
and
British.
this is entirely a bias on my part. I think all the Endless should have British accents. She can be laid back and British and shit, but she should still be like able to. And this is more to the point. As fun and laid back and manic pixie dream girlish as Death is, and she's basically the manic pixie dream girl gothic girl, the manic pixie goth girl. She's still graceful in her whimsy. She's not a snarky valley girl. She's a good time girl. She wants to have fun. She wants to enjoy life. She wants to enjoy all of life's aspects and stuff. And no offense to Kat Dennings, but I don't think she can do graceful or serious, because Death has to at least be profound, if not always serious, because she's Death. And number one, she kind of has a weird level of melancholy when she, in particular in Sound of Her Wings, when she's talking to Dream about how she's a little bit jealous of him, that even though, even though, Dream is mopey and harsh and regal and self-serious, humans still enter his realm each night without fear, whereas they always dread their time with her, no matter how bubbly and happy and easy she makes the transition. And of course, Dream gets pissed off because they should love his sister, because his sister, goddammit. So yeah, I'm having a little bit of worries about that. Now, it is entirely possible that there is another side to Kat Dennings that I've never known in my life. But if she's basically going to do Marcy from Thor or the woman from Two Broke Girls reading Death's lines, this does not bode well. And I suspect that if he exists, Dream will be throwing a hissy fit about this.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's see.
Also, Death was listed before Dream, and this kind of annoys me.
Start with the
main characters, damn it.
You are one picky bitch, Dalton.
Well, okay. When you start listing a cast, you start with the main character. It's called top billing.
Well, okay, I have a counterpoint to that. Wouldn't it be more? What's the word? You're saving him for last. Like, isn't the last spot technically more?
Yeah, but he's not the last spot either. This is the sad thing. He's neither the first nor the last spot. So if they were building up to who are we going to cast as Dream? Who are we going to cast as Dream? Who are we going to cast as Dream? That would be one thing. I would go, okay, I see what you're doing. You're being dramatic, and that works. But like, he's neither the first nor the last in the list. So it's like, okay. Anyway.
It could probably just be some stupid person who did not think of this.
Yeah, I'm chalking this one up to human stupidity, and we're moving on because I don't have time to get angry at this. Because the thing on my screen is drawing my anger reserves toward it as we speak. Anyway,
you just want him to be Matt Ryan, right? You just.
Everyone wants him to be Matt Ryan. Thank you very much. Also, aside from him not being Matt Ryan, which is a sin in of itself, I award you no points. May God have mercy on your soul and Dream as well. aside from completely passion-related fan casting, there is a main problem here. Taron Egerton is posh. John Constantine is not posh. This is the same problem with him being played by Paul Bettany, sorry, Englentine. Paul Bettany is posh British. John Constantine is working class, bordering on Cockney British, and he is a self-destructive, chain-smoking, hard-drinking bastard and a gumshoe. He needs to be kind of uncouth, kind of shabby, and kind of unlikable. And I'm not sure that uncouth, shabby, working class, hard drinking, hard smoking, and unlikable, while still being somehow compelling, charismatic, and charming, is something that Taron Egerton can pull off. That being said, I didn't even recognize him as the ogre in Bright. So if he actually has the acting chops to go full Cockney almost on this, I will withdraw my substantive objections. The passion-driven fan-based objections still stand though, because Matt Ryan is the voice of John Constantine. Thank you very fucking much. And whoever didn't make Matt Ryan aware of this so he could do it, you may go fuck yourself. Moving on. Unless you left.
Oh, no, I it's funny. As soon as you said moving on, I came back.
Okay.
Give me a sec.
Perfect timing.
Neil Gaiman as the narrator, obviously.
Yeah, that's kind of a duh. Although I did enjoy that when the Russian comic book guy did a rendition of Sound of Her Wings, the same voice he used for Dream was the voice of the narrator, implying that Dream was the narrator, and I did like that. But it's Neil Gaiman, and if you didn't give Neil Gaiman some kind of role in this, I'm pretty sure the world would come to an end. So, yeah, he can be the narrator.
All right, so moving on.
And okay, so James McAvoy as Dream, not Morpheus, Dream. I'm okay with this, especially if he uses a voice similar to the voice he used for the Beast in Split and Glass, because it does have that sort of regal gravitas to it. And James McAvoy is enough of a chameleon
Actor.
Yeah, there's enough of a chameleon when it comes to his acting that he can basically make Dream whoever he needs to be, and I'm fine with it.
So I think the major question is, would he be a cast for the Netflix series?
He would be acceptable, provided he was in the proper makeup and everything. My only reservation with James McAvoy, and I do genuinely think that James McAvoy is basically the star of this show, which is good because Dream should be the star of the Sandman. Apologies to all the Death fanboys and fangirls out there, but she's incidental to Dream's story, sorry. As much as I think that he's the star of this show, in an actual live action version of this, I'd rather he play Desire simply because of the requirements of who Desire is and who Desire has to be. Because the whole thing with Desire is Desire looks different based on who is observing them, because they're Desire, and therefore they change depending on who observes them. And given how James McAvoy can go through 30 or 40 different personas in under a minute, it works for Desire in the same way that Gillian Anderson as Media in American Gods really worked, because she can be many different figures from the media and all the same character at once. So yeah, I would definitely prefer James McAvoy if he ever gets casted in the real in the live action Netflix Sandman production. I'd rather him be playing Desire, but I'm not opposed to him playing Drake. Okay,
I don't know. Who
Samantha,
this is.
Samantha Morton. Okay, look up her filmography and tell me what she was in because I have no point of reference for her.
Yeah, same here.
It's possible she might just be inaudible, like a voice actress, which is fine. Because this I believe is Element Girl, and Element Girl only shows up in one instant. It's weird that they gave all of these voice actors out, but they didn't give voice actors for like Cain and Abel or Etrigan or no, they do Lucifer later on, so clearly Lucifer shows the fuck up somewhere. But yeah, it's weird that they didn't list all the necessary characters because I assume all the characters are gonna need voice actors unless some voice actors are doing double duty. But you would think that if some actors were doing double duty, that they would list those. And I'm not even against actors doing double duty because, like I said, James McAvoy can have 50 different personas in under a minute, so it's fine. And also, for those who are fans of the Dresden Files, James Marsters does the entire cast, and he has a distinct voice for each one of them. So clearly, it can be done. It's weird that they would give light to these characters and not the other characters that appear in the Sandman. Like for example, just off the top of my head, one major one you missed, Dr. D, Dr. Destiny.
Okay, so Founder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she was in a Woody Allen movie called Sweet and Lowdown.
Okay, anyone who can play off of Woody Allen is probably a good choice for this.
She's also British.
Okay, this makes some kind of sense, yes. Why she wasn't the choice for Death instead of Kat Dennings, I don't know, but again, maybe Kat Dennings will surprise me, but if she doesn't, let's say that you'll see the real one quick.
Right.
Next.
Yeah, 1 second. Okay. I don't know how to say that name.
I think it's Bebby, maybe?
Debbie Newworth. I suppose.
No idea. No idea who that is either. And also, you gave the Siamese cat you gave the Siamese cat a casting picture, but you didn't give Cain or Abel or Goldie or Brute or Glob or even like Wesley Dobbs a voice actor. Or how Roderick Burgess and his son. Like shouldn't they come up first somewhere in here? Before the Siamese cat. Not that I'm saying anything bad about the Siamese cat. The Siamese cat's awesome, but this seems to be very random is all I'm saying.
Point. All right. Continuing. All right. Andy Serkis as Matthew the Raven.
Okay, that's genius. And I want to go on record as saying that's genius. And thank fuck. He's probably my second favorite casting choice in this entire thing thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
And
given that Matthew basically follows Dream everywhere, that makes sense. Which basically means we'll get a lot of dialogue between the best actor in the thing and the second best actor in the thing. So, yay us, I guess.
what about Andy Serkis as Dream? Or is he like Andy Serkis as Dream?
He doesn't really have the body type for it, is the thing. If this were like CG or animated or something like that, or motion capture, then maybe. Or if it was like having Doug Jones do the actual makeup and performance work, and then have Andy Serkis be the voice, I could see it maybe working because Andy Serkis can do quite a few different voices, but still,
God,
it's hard. Yes, I know I'm picky when it comes to this. But I have been waiting for Sandman to be adapted correctly for a very long time, and I'm still waiting.
Michael Sheen.
Oh God, Michael Sheen as Lucifer. That might be my third favorite. Actually, that might trump the Andy Serkis as Matthew example.
Is it weird that Lucifer kind of looks like David Bowie?
It's intentional.
I know that. I'm just.
Yeah, Neil had a sense of humor, so he based Lucifer look on kind of David Bowie / David Bowie's Goblin King from Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
And if Michael Sheen is going to basically be giving life to that, then I would do a similar rant about how he should be Tom Ellis from Lucifer. But if he isn't to be Tom Ellis from Lucifer, then so help me, Michael Sheen is a fine choice.
Yeah,
Just because Michael Sheen is one of the greatest actors in the world at doing the camp British bad guy. So, hells yeah. Literally, hells yeah.
Okay. It's funny because on the Amazon series Good Omens, he played an angel.
Which...
Aziraphale. He was literally the male.
Oh, right. Yeah, he was Izzy. So yeah, having him be Lucifer, I can totally go with. I hope they let him steer into the campiness of it though, and make it a little bit more like Aro from Twilight, or even like have Michael Sheen do a Russell Brand like imitation for Lucifer. I would die. I would die laughing and go to the closed gates of hell.
All right. Overall, not a bad casting.
No, some are questionable, and I'm also questioning why some of these were listed here and why some other characters weren't listed here. But meh.
And awkward silence.
Yeah, the main highlights are Michael Sheen as Lucifer, James McAvoy as Dream, and Andy Serkis as Matthew. Those are the three that I'm looking forward to the most. And if the characters we haven't seen yet or have been casted yet get as good of voice actors as those, or even if some actors do double duty on some roles, then all will be right with the world, I think. You actually could have had James McAvoy voice both Dream and Death, because he can do a female British voice pretty well.
Isn't he supposed to be like Scottish or something? Like James McAvoy, he's actually like Scottish, right?
I believe so. I don't actually know what his real voice sounds like. I think that's it.
Just, I'm sorry, it was in my head. I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know where
No,
McAvoy is from.
he's British.
Mm.
Oh, hold
Mm-hmm.
on. Oh no, he actually is Scottish.
Okay, well, you live and you learn, I guess. He's good at hiding it then, because I would have never guessed.
Funny, because you're part Scottish. You should have been able to notice.
It has been like 500 years, and I'm not an immortal vampire, so I don't have actual memories of my homeland, laddie. Though I
Fair
do
enough.
hope to someday actually go there, because I do want to see the British Isles, if for no other reason than it'll be a interesting expedition for mystical purposes. Now, if I get dragged into ferry, then it was nice knowing you.
I always wanted to visit Ireland. Part of my blood's there. So.
Mm.
Okay. Now it is finally fucking loaded after being like 5 goddamn minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so our second. Uh, yeah, our second. Not second, third topic of the night.
Yeah.
I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to go a little tired myself. Anyway, Robert Pattinson refuses to work out constantly for a Batman role because he doesn't want to set a precedent. Precedent. This is from the Independent. .co.uk. It's written by Jacob Stolworthy. It was published 5 days ago, which would be May 13th. Nope,
Well,
no, not May 13th. May 12th.
12.
Yeah, May 12th.
Yeah.
I'm not good at math. Anyway,
Today is the 17th. 17 minus 5 is 12.
and there's the cat. First got the dog, now the cat. Okay, so Robert Pattinson has opened up about body image for men in Hollywood in a brand new interview.
Mm. By saying some of the most stupid prima donna things I think I've ever heard.
Yep. Okay. God, he's cold. The actor was interviewed by G2 while in lockdown in London and discussed his role in forthcoming Christopher Nolan film Tenet, as well as his decision to become the next Batman. Pattinson was filming Matt Reeves' The Batman when the quarantine was announced, and when asked if he's keeping to his strict fitness regime by put together by a personal trainer, he said he's ignoring the instructions because it sends a bad message. Ever hear about what the? Like,
My cat decided to disconnect the call without consulting me first.
Cats are assholes.
She realized I was talking to something that wasn't her, and she would not have it.
All right, well, where we lose you, Dalton?
Right after reading the title, I think, but I caught most of it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll reread it if you want.
No, it's not really. It's not really.
Well,
worth it.
I read a little bit of the article, I guess, around the time he disappeared.
Right.
So
Yeah. But it's not worth it. Like I said, I caught most of it. I jumped right back in as soon as I could shoo my cat away from the keyboard by petting her and stroking her and showing her that she was a good kitty, but that she needed to get off the phone.
Coming this
What
fall. Normal for the camel.
What the hell is that?
Presumably ads.
Oh, you fucking piece of shit.
Curse you ads.
God, that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, and it'll probably happen at least 3 more times before we close out the article, so...
Yeah. Okay, so did you have any thoughts on...
While Mr. Patterson didn't use the term toxic masculinity, I think it's fairly obvious from the context of what he's saying that he's implying something along those lines, because he essentially is implying that holding your body to a high physical standard is a bad thing, and that something nihilism / something realism. Incidentally, therefore, fuck you, you sparkly pansy ass prick. I'm going to hook a gem polisher up to a meat grinder and turn you into a Zales store.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Bradley, don't forget to tip.
Motherfucker.
What in God's name is that?
Okay, so you were saying, or were you done?
No, it's the insipid. How dare, first of all, Mr. Patterson, how dare you imply that you are the first Batman? Because I'm sorry, but you don't get a say as to what the precedent is when it comes to playing Batman. Adam West may have gotten a say as to what the precedent is regarding Batman. Michael Keaton may have gotten a say about what the precedent is regarding Batman. Christian Bale may have gotten a say about what the precedent is regarding Batman. Even Ben Affleck somewhat got a say as to what the precedent was regarding Batman. But at this point, between all the numerous live-action iterations and all the numerous animated iterations, there is basically no, like, if you decide to do something different with Batman, that is you being the outlier at this point. There really is no precedence. You're not even the first iteration of Batman in this cycle of movies, dude. You're the please, for the love of God, let's try to make a good one this time Batman in these movies. So you don't, like, it's such fucking hubris to even say that he gets a say as to what the precedent is in playing Batman. He's like the 15th live action Batman to exist, and if we're counting all the iterations, then I would say the 3 people that are most culpable for the precedent of playing Batman would be Adam West, Michael Keaton, and Kevin Conroy probably are the most authoritative when it comes to the precedent of playing Batman. Batman, sir, is an institution and has been for almost a century at this point. The die is cast. You can't just... I know you may think you're the center of the universe, but I'm sorry, but 80 years of continuity and several media transfers since then trump your egomaniacal douchebaggery. And to start with the whole "it sends a bad message" thing is even more infuriating. Moving on.
Yeah, one sec. Okay. Patterson was... Alright, if you think you're working out all the time, you're part of the problem, he said, referring to his fellow Hollywood actors.
If you bother to work out, you are part of the problem, he said. Mr. Patterson, you are a twit. And I'm not saying this as someone who is at all inclined toward exercise. At fucking all. I am 5'4" and rail skinny. I look like a shorter version of you most of the time. That being said, people holding standards, especially meritocratic ones, about physical, psychological, mental, or philosophical excellence is a good thing. People striving for more, people having goals and ideals to hold themselves to, is generally a good thing. And if your whole industry is essentially giving form to other people's ideas, which, by the way, it kind of is your job as an actor to do that, if you basically exist in the realm of translating ideas from the realm of ideals to some semblance of reality, then you do have to be in some way idealized. And in that same way, we expect those who we see on screen, especially in roles like this that require them to be literally superhuman, to essentially show us what the human body is capable of. Especially a character like Batman, because that's Batman's whole shtick. Batman's whole shtick is taking a guy with no Deus Ex Machinas or otherwise enhancements and essentially working himself stupid for the sake of being the peak of human achievement, as in raw, unfiltered human achievement. So to say that about Batmanable things is just stupid. Now, granted, there are superheroes who it doesn't make sense to be built like a brick shithouse. Like, for example, characters who are mental in nature, or whose powers are primarily mental or primarily non-physical. Makes perfect sense for them not to be built like brick shithouses. It would be fucking stupid if they remade Glass or Unbreakable and Mr. Glass was built like a brick shithouse. That would be very counterproductive to the point. It would make no sense for Constantine to be built like a brick shithouse because he's primarily a trickster who thrives off of wit, knowledge, skill, and charisma more than anything. And literal magic. So it doesn't make sense for him to be built like brick shithouse. But it does very much make sense for Batman to at least aspire to a physical ideal. And if you want to make a counter argument within the mythos of Batman, that's fine. But you didn't go for a counter argument within the mythos of Batman. Even though there was a very obvious one that I shall now give you in case you ever get asked this question again. Okay, Batman is a ninja. Ninjas rely more on agility than they do on strength. Therefore, it makes more sense for Batman to be streamlined. That argument would have been perfectly acceptable for why you're choosing not to work out. But instead of that, you played the morality card, the philosophical framework card of, I don't want to send a bad message to boys and men. I don't want people to be held to a masculine standard. And in so doing, you have shown yourself to be exactly as floppy-haired and smack-headed as you always were, you arrogant, sparkling douchebag. That's why I'm using Twilight-related insults for you. That was the whole point of the, I'm going to hook a gem polisher up to a meat grinder and turn you into a Zales store comment, because you are exactly as depressively hipstery and entitled as you ever were when you were in Twilight. And honestly, in terms of amateur dramatics and quasi-moping, you're giving that Edward character that you hated playing all those years, which, fair enough, everyone else didn't like those movies very much either, except for their fan base. You're giving your most hated character kind of a run for his money in terms of being a mopey, self-important, immortal smackhead. I award you no points. Moving on.
You said a precedent, he continued, adding, No one was doing this in the 1970s. Even James Dean, he wasn't exactly ripped. Reflecting upon his time in the Twilight franchise, which began in 2008, he said, "The one time they told me to take my shirt off, I think they told me to put it back on again."
Yes, however, that is not in any way related to the role you are playing now. If you're still butthurt over Twilight, there's the door, Mr. Patterson. If you're looking to redeem yourself from Twilight, which you should be at this point, considering you've only been in art house crap since then, not to say that you were in bad movies, because the movies you were in were actually really good. I'm just saying they were mostly irrelevant art house shit. Shit in this instance means stuff, not a metric of quality.
Okay, so sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Finish, and then I'll...
But yeah, okay. So they didn't like it when you took your shirt off in Twilight. A, that doesn't make sense because Edward was supposed to be the noble alternative to Jacob's primalness. That was sort of the whole dichotomy there. And B, so you internalized that and said, so I'm never going to improve my body. Someone criticizes you about something, and your response is, fuck you, I'm never doing anything to improve this ever again. Do you not see how that's kind of counterproductive to, oh, I don't know, everything in existence? And also, James Dean was the physical peak that was available at the time of the point that his movies were made. Because we now know more about physiology, working out, biology, bodybuilding, etc., we now have higher standards because we are now able to achieve more idealized forms, or at least some of us are. Clearly, I am not and would never. However, if the point is to show men at their peak, which is often the point in Hollywood, that peak is going to get higher as we know how to utilize our bodies better. The more we can approach that Greco-Roman standard of beauty, the more we're going to. And incidentally, in James Dean's movies, for the most part, he wasn't playing bruisers or physically perfect specimens, so he wasn't held to the standards of one. However, if you're playing an action hero or a superhero, which you are, you probably should be accountable to that standard. If you're playing the role of an athlete, you probably should have a pretty athletic build. If you're playing the role, like, okay, no one expected Woody Allen to ever work out because Woody Allen was always playing the neurotic little nerd that everyone secretly sided with. That's Woody Allen's entire shtick. But you, sir, are playing a literal superhuman, so please get off your high horse, stop acting like you're better than the material, which honestly pisses me off more than anything, and do your fucking job. In this instance, that is part of your fucking job. Being able to convincingly portray the thing you're asked to portray in the manner that you're asked to portray it is your fucking job. So do it. You're not better than the material. You don't get to dictate the material more than the material gets to dictate you. Deal with it. This is exactly the problem with Brie Larson. He wants to use this to make a point rather than actually use it as a thing that should be served like every other fucking art form. Next.
Alright, so, well, before we do, cat meows.
What was the point of that, Kit? Seriously, what was the point of that?
I will
Okay,
keep her away. Yeah, I keep the cat away.
She's quieting down when I pet her, so that should hopefully keep her from interjecting, except when she has something to offer.
Right. Sotana Gaming has been here for about 10 minutes, and I haven't read any of her comments, and I feel really bad about that.
Sorry, Ahsoka.
Huh?
Sorry, Ahsoka.
Yeah. Okay, so You reading the Rob Patterson stuff? Warner more than likely has their hands deep in this article. He's trying to make a link to the movie stars of the 50s. They're trying to make a weak Batman and a strong woman. Grammar mistake there.
I don't think there is a female role in this movie, so I wouldn't
Catwoman.
say, well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a identity politics thing. It's just a straight up deconstructionist thing. It's why should we ever hold to this idea? It's not like this idea has merit or anything. Derp, derp, derp.
I'm gonna hold my opinions on that until we get like the first trailer or something.
Okay, and for the record, my issues with Robert Pattinson's statements here are entirely directed at him and don't change my opinions of Matt Reeves at all, because Matt Reeves really, really seems to get the movie, and everything we've seen from him so far suggests that he gets the movie. So, yeah, I'm good with Matt Reeves. Everything directed here is Robert Pattinson representing himself, and I feel no trepidation
Okay, so
towards the Batman or Matt Reeves.
well, this is interesting. Even back in the 70s, bodybuilding was thought of as gay. Even in the 70s, stars were still lifting weights. So it says.
Yes, because people essentially derided that which they didn't understand, essentially. Now,
We're stupid.
I wish that all bodybuilders were gay. It would make my dating life so much easier, but it is not so.
Okay. So
And
I thought you were done. So never mind.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna continue reading. So.
Yeah.
All right. Patterson revealed his trainer pleaded with him to use the Bosu ball and single weight left with him while in lockdown, but said he's barely doing anything. He said he's sticking to his meal plan though, which includes oatmeal and with vanilla protein powder sprinkled on it, as well as tuna topped with Tabasco.
Okay, well, I applaud you for at least doing something, but to be fair, as far as physical exercise goes, what you described there doesn't sound too far out of it's not even too far out of the realm of stuff that I could do, to be honest with you. It's stuff that like your average yoga instructor might do or give you. So it's not even a Zack Snyder style heavy weight training thing you're doing. It's just stay in relative shape so that when we do this, it looks somewhat convincing. And again, if you didn't want to bulk up, all you had to do was make the Batman is a ninja, therefore he should be lean rather than bulky argument. And I would actually applaud you because you would have actually been making effort to understand the character at that point. But instead, you went the moral argument and you compared yourself to James Dean, which, by the way, don't compare yourself to better actors, please, sir. You're just pointing out how much worse you are than they are by contrasting. You will never be the next James Dean. I'm sorry. If you were ever going to be the next James Dean, it would have been when you were at the height of your Twilight days and you and everybody else hated them, aside from the wet teenage girls and even wetter middle-aged soccer mom that propped up that franchise. Sorry, but believe me, I'm bisexual. I use those movies for eye candy just like everybody else, but that's all they were. Let's be perfectly frank about that. They were eye candy at best, and let's leave them in the past where they belong.
Okay, so where was I? Christian Bale, who played Batman in Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, famously gained 43 pounds while bulking up for the role. Pattinson will next be seen in Tenet, which is said to make history as the first new film released in cinemas post-coronavirus lockdown this July.
Especially given that you're essentially following Ben Affleck and Christian Bale, Mr. Patterson. You look like a prima donna dumb fuck. And that appears to be because you're being a prima donna dumb fuck who either thinks he's better than the material and therefore shouldn't have to put in the effort. Incidentally, fuck you. Every art deserves putting in the effort. That's what being an actor is, and I'm not even an actor. Or it's just too lazy to do things that millions of middle class women in LA and all throughout California and the entire Midwest do voluntarily of their own free will any day of the week. And when annoying blonde bimbo valley girls are more athletic than you and you're not me, you dumb fucked up, Mr. Patterson.
Yeah, okay. In the interview, revealed that one thing he has been improved to say about the mysterious thriller. Is that it?
I don't care about Tenet. Christopher Nolan is annoying and soulless.
Well,
He's the very definition of technically proficient, but with no heart or soul whatsoever. So fuck him. And I don't really like war movies, and it does look very much like Tenet. It's just another generic Oscar bait war movie.
let's agree to disagree.
Oh,
And
are you looking forward to Tenet?
I am. I don't claim to be like the biggest fan of Christopher Nolan, but I do respect his style.
I mostly just like his style because it's technical acumen over any kind of substance or even heart, for the most part. Any emotion that is brought to his movies is brought by the performances rather than directing. Case in point, Batman Begins and Batman, not Batman Returns, but Dark Knight Returns,
Dark Knight Rises.
Thank you. Dark Knight Rises, are extremely forgettable. The reason we remember The Dark Knight is primarily because of Heath Ledger, because he gave an Oscar-worthy performance in that movie. It's really nothing. Well, and also Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, who I hope eventually comes back as long as Morgan Freeman is still alive. It doesn't even have to be the same universe, but Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox works, so do it again. It's not like Morgan Freeman being in lots of things in different roles that are similar to previous roles he's been in is particularly different than every other Morgan Freeman movie. But yeah, those were the only two like remarkable aspects of those Batman movies. Everything that relied specifically on the technical side or the direction was just technically perfect, but ultimately unmoving. He knows everything there is to know about the technical side of directing, but he doesn't know anything about the human element or the living element of filmmaking.
I feel like this is going to be a topic for if we ever do like another kind of Thunderdome thing.
Yeah, probably.
We are now just waiting for the. Alright, it's ready. For our last article, one I wasn't really interested to cover, but Dawn kind of convinced me.
Mm-hmm.
It's from fanbyte.com. John Constantine bottom for King Shark, and that's canon.
Well, I mean, Johnny has been by since like the late. Well,
No, it's just I paused there because like I never expected myself reading that, like saying that out loud.
yeah, it's a thing that exists now, and we read it. Honestly, I don't know what position I would have like I don't know what position I cast John in. I guess it depends on who he is with. I think John is probably a versatile, which is to say somebody who can be both the top and the bottom depending on who they're with. And given that King Shark is an 8-foot shark that's like 400 pounds, I don't blame him for bottoming. if indeed he did bottom. That's the thing. I never really got the impression from the movie directly that he bottomed. Other than the fact that King Shark winked and he blushed, which is sort of a bottomish thing to do, to be shy or submissive around your top. So there's that.
Yeah, I feel like this is such a you article, Dalton.
Well, I mean, it's a bisexual magician who bottoms talking about another bisexual magician who apparently bottoms. So this was kind of inevitable.
All right, so yeah, this was written by Kenneth Shepard, published May 6, 2020. I don't really think it that
Mm-hmm. Although it might matter if he goes all social justice-y and then I have to yell, which I foresee might happen because this seems to be that kind of article.
Oh God, I don't know if I should turn off my fan or just turn it on 1.
Why?
It's kind of cold, and I'm now wearing I'm wearing a jacket now, just to like.
Yeah, I just turn it down maybe.
I'll do it later. Kind of lazy right now.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, John Constantine, you might know him for being DC Comics' go-to warlock and detective for a lot of the supernatural nonsense that often happens in that particular comic book universe. If you're into the adaptations, you might remember when Keanu Reeves played him in the 2005 film.
Please, God, no. There's a reason I call him Nonstantine. Namely, he basically didn't play Constantine. He played a random occult detective that had basically butt-fuck nothing to do with Constantine. Literally butt-fuck nothing.
Okay,
oh God, I unintentionally punned.
I know you're going to go on a Doctor Strange-style rant if I let you continue.
Yeah, fair play. Especially because they're stupid to be mined here. In the very next sentence, if I remember when I read this correctly.
You good?
Yeah. Proceed.
But me, I know him best for being the bisexual king played by Matt Ryan in the Arrowverse. I'm talking about the man who travels through time and uses magic to save the day, but also literally save the timeline by kissing his boyfriend in Legends of Tomorrow.
Okay, as a bisexual person, and moreover, a bisexual practitioner of the occult, it annoys me that you're reducing John down to his sexuality. As much as I enjoy the fact that Johnny is interesting in that way, it's probably the most irrelevant part of his personality. If they just made him straight or gay, or any other sexuality, it really wouldn't change his character all that much. Do I kind of get a laugh out of the fact that I'm a bisexual practitioner of the occult, and so is he? Sure, because he's my 4th favorite character in all comics, but it is fundamentally the least important part of him. And incidentally, he both saved and broke the timeline from dealing with his lover, because Johnny can't keep the universe together to save his life. That's kind of John's luck. He is a bastard to the point of self and often universal destruction. Because Johnny is an ass, and apparently gets fucked in it. Zing.
Subpaternal Gaming sees, I see John as a switch.
Yeah, birth. That was what I was saying.
Mm-hmm. And whenever I hear the name Warlock, I think of Evil Magician. And she just now wrote, John's sexuality doesn't really matter. Yep.
Yeah, agreed. Incidentally, Ahsoka, you're not far off because the word warlock actually comes from an Anglo-Saxon word which means traitor, which incidentally is also why a lot of like male cultists and magical practitioners really kind of hate the word warlock because it implies being a traitor to something. I think in particular, off the top of my head, a guy by the name of Christopher Penzek, who is a Wiccan, and I don't really have oodles of amount of respect for Wicca compared to other versions of magic, but he seems to be like the go-to guy when it comes to complaining about that. So you're not far off, given that warlock has explicitly negative connotations and other terms for mage don't. That being said, I don't really see it as negative because it's just like it's yet another term in a entire lexicon of terms for someone who practices magic and is male. Moving on. Brainstormer? If you're talking, I can't hear you, by the way.
Sorry, I left for a sec. I might have to another sec. Also, okay. I saw Todd Gaming says in the animated series, didn't John have a daughter?
In which animated series?
All right. I'll be right back. I have to go sing Happy Birthday.
Okay. I feel like I should be singing punk music on behalf of John Constantine because he was very heavily influenced by the punk movement. But I don't know any punk music, so it's just going to hang on the air, unfortunately. Unless my cat wants to come by and meow a bunch. Like that. And we're waiting, and we're waiting. For those that don't know, it was Brainstormer's uncle's birthday recently, and I'm assuming that's what that's about.
I'm back and I have cake.
Huzzah.
Oh, cookies and cream, if anyone's wondering. It's a cookies and cream cake.
Yeah. It's always good to have cake. Especially if you happen to be Marie Antoinette. Having spare cake around is probably a good thing. Especially if you tell the peasants to eat it.
All right. So Sonsai Gaming says, Young Justice. I thought that magician girl was John's daughter. No, that was Zatanna.
Yeah, John. He may have had children in the comics a couple of times, but I don't remember him ever having children in any. I don't remember him appearing in any animated show except for Justice League Action. The only place where he's not being voiced by Matt Ryan, which needs to be fixed. But yeah, John hardly ever shows up. That was Zatara and Zatanna that were in Young Justice.
Mm-hmm. There's a thick ass cake. All right, so where were we? Why are we here talking about him today? Because John made an appearance in a new animated film, Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, which came to digital platforms yesterday.
Which despite my feelings about the trailer, which are still intact because that was a terrible trailer, the movie is good, and it's nowhere near as everybody but the Justice League Dark focused as I thought. It primarily focuses on John and Raven, so yeah, perfectly reasonable for a Justice League Dark movie. Also, there's a scene where Trigon the Terrible beats the living shit out of Darkseid, and I never knew I needed that so much until it happened. So, yay.
All right. Ryan reprises his role as the Magic Man himself, and while I haven't seen the movie yet, I'm always glad to hear Ryan playing the character in any form he can because he's so good.
Correct. I have no issues with the statement. It is simply correct.
Sorry, trying to eat this cake.
Never apologize when cake is involved unless I don't get any, and there's an option for me to get some.
In order for that
In
to
this
happen, I
instance,
have to
it's
send
okay
it to
because
you.
there is no option, but if there was an option and I wasn't getting cake, that might be a problem.
I mean, I'd send it to you, but I think it would take.
Yeah, it wouldn't survive the trip, and also I wouldn't want it because it's specifically for you and your family, and that's fine. But in other instances, if there's ever cake, I usually want some, unless it's like chocolate or something. I don't like chocolate cake.
This was like kind of hard to eat because I need to get something to drink, maybe like milk or something. It's like it's like peanut butter in a sense, you know. Like it
Yeah.
kind of gets stuck in you.
Yeah.
Trigon was always a bigger threat than Darkseid, says Ahsoka.
Yeah, no shit. Because he's an actual demon, and Darkseid really only is an alien whose technology allows him to essentially play as a god. They never really make the new gods into gods, and that's one of my main issues with them. Unless, and I thought about this last night while I was watching it with my boyfriend, the way they handled the new gods could work if they were literally supposed to be the gods of technology. If they were supposed to be the gods of technology in the same way that, like, Hephaestus used to be the god of forging, then it makes sense why they're all technologied out and shit. But unless they're supposed to literally be the gods of technology, then there's no reason on Earth why they should use electromagnetic-based technology. What's so goddamn ever? They're definitely not gods. They are physical aliens, and it annoys me. Meanwhile, Trigon is an actual extra-dimensional demon with literal magic power.
The movie itself might have eluded me thus far, but I did see one scene in particular that I just had to shout out about from the rooftops. Here's a 17-second scene controversy of Twitter user Joe Kitara, who was kind enough to post it on their feed. And
Controversy. What controversy exactly? When I explained that it happened on my Twitter feed, one person was like confused, but I don't really know why they were confused. I don't think it had anything to do with Ewan McGay. It had to do with my continuity, though. And like King Shark is an anthropomorphic shark, so honestly, it can do whatever it wants sexually. I don't care. And Constantine has been bi since like the late 80s when he first appeared, so I don't see any problem here.
Hmm.
I do find it kind of funny that King Shark winks and John blushes like a submissive bitch, which it's hard to imagine John Constantine being a submissive bitch to anybody, but it's an 8-foot, 400-pound anthropomorphic shark, so yeah. His submissiveness might be explainable here.
There's so much frosting. God damn.
The cake may not have been a lie, but it is difficult to eat, apparently.
All right, so there's some stuff to unpack here. This scene is dope because it shows John getting to be the previously stated bisexual king he is, even outside of Legends of Tomorrow. But we also learned that he's apparently a monster fucker too.
Did you miss the part in Constantine City of Demons where he fucked what appeared to be some kind of fairy in the form of Nightmare Nurse? Because they literally directly allude to the fact that she was the best sex he ever had, and she is not human, so that. And by the way, John has been seducing supernatural entities pretty much since like the early Hellblazer days. So yeah, that's. If you're surprised by that information, then you have not been paying attention, or you're just not as familiar with Constantine as you should be. Please get more familiar.
As he at some point dated King Shark. I do like the fake out they did with him, where it's first perceived that it was Harley Quinn.
And John is just like, do I look mad?
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past him.
Well, I mean, I like that even John Constantine is like, there are boundaries that even I will not cross. Anthropomorphic shark, it's 8 foot 400 pounds, fine. Harley fucking Quinzel, not on your bloody life, mate.
Alright, so Circus Game says, if a 400-pound anthro shark wanted you, it would get you whether you liked it or not.
Pretty much. Though, judging by the way that King Shark winked at Constantine, I don't think there was any abuse of any kind going on there. It seemed, if anything, that King Shark wanted Johnny back. So, hooray, John actually had a stable relationship for 0.2 seconds. Ooh. His relationships don't go well if anyone's not explicitly aware of that. John tends to accidentally kill all the things, which might be why he ended up with an anthropomorphic shark, because a giant, super strong shark creature is pretty hard to kill. So maybe he was just like, at least if I screw this, or at least if I let this guy screw me, he won't die at the end of it. When you put it like that, there's kind of an almost tragic comedy to it, but yeah, that might be the reason. Someone make that canon. I want that to be the reason. He's just like, I kill everyone I love, so I'm just going to love this thing because this thing can clearly take care of itself.
I also remember I like his banter with Count Boomerang. Like, I think it's just like one scene, but like
No, there are a couple scenes where they go at it. It's funny.
Yeah, Aussie versus I don't know a term for British.
Limey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also Polygon's comic editor, Susanna Polo made a joke about John being the bottom of the relationship on Twitter, which was confirmed by writer Mar Medjurid Scott. So just let that sink in. Let John let in King Shark.
Well, yeah. Even if he ever topped for anyone else, it's a bit hard to be the dominant partner when you're a fairly tall average human and your partner is superhuman anthropomorphic shark. But incidentally, I don't have any problem with John liking to bottom. It's just I never even though I knew he was bi, I never really thought, what position would Johnny be in this instance? I may have officially been so gross that it killed Brainstormer. I apologize to his ghost if one exists.
I was taking a bite of cake and I heard what you said.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why it is probably inadvisable to enjoy foodstuffs while we're streaming. Warning, podcast in the store may result in spit takes.
Okay.
We're all mad here.
Yeah, no shit. God, I'm so glad I wasn't drinking anything. The shit was squared out my nose.
I apologize for making you waste a piece of cake, though.
No, I ate it. It's just like I was near choking from it.
Okay.
Ahsoka says, yeah, that or go with a giant.
Which I'm sure in some far-flung time period John has done before. Like I said, Ace of the Nightmare Nurse was loosely implied to be a fairy, considering that when he summoned her in Constantine's City of Demons, she was, quote, in the middle of a threesome between a dryad and a sylph. So that to me implies fairy. Also the fact that her magic is purple.
I was thinking Giganta.
I mean, it's not like he's above fight or screwing villains. I mean, King Shark most often is a villain, I'm thinking. So my question is, were they a stable couple? And judging from the sincere lack of bite marks or anything on John, I would imagine they were a pretty civil couple, because an angry King Shark probably wouldn't hesitate to bite off your head or elsewhere.
I might need to get a drink.
Probably a good idea.
And no, Dawn, it won't be root beer because when I went to the store, they were all out.
Also, milk goes good with cake, so there is that.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Jesus. Okay. All right. Ryan's version of Constantine is a regular cast member of Legends of Tomorrow, which is 11 episodes into its 14 episodes 5th season, and airs on CW on Mondays. While he is a major visible queer representative in its DC live-action shows, other series like Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Batwoman, and Black Lightning all have their fair share of queer heroes throughout. Sounds like Marvel and its let's put our director in a scene as a nameless gay man ways could learn a thing or two from its direct competitor. Jesus Christ.
How about you go fuck yourself? Because there is absolutely no reason why there needs to be some kind of LGBT quota. And that is once again coming from a bisexual, disabled cat.
Funny
Yeah.
enough, most of the characters on CW shows, like the CW superhero shows,
Mm-hmm.
don't have as much character as the nameless guy in Avengers Endgame did.
Yeah, because we see him in the process of grieving from an apocalypse. We basically just see everybody else like partying around most of the time. Now,
All right.
granted, when they hinged the fate of the multiverse on John's love interest, I thought that was handled fairly well. And they were a very cute couple together, and I could also see him bottoming in that situation if anyone's curious. But I do dislike the everyone can basically party fuck anyone they want approach that the CW seems to have. It actually kind of cheapens same-sex relationships when A, it's all the female characters primarily. There hardly is ever any male quote-unquote representation there. And B, Sarah basically finds someone new to screw every time period they're in, no matter how frowned upon homosexuality would have been in that time period.
Isn't she supposed to be bisexual, Sarah?
Huh?
Sarah Lance, White Canary. She's supposed to be bisexual, isn't she?
Yes.
And I'm back with milk.
Yay.
All right, so Sotomayor Gaming. Yeah, more than likely they had a very stable relationship since he doesn't have bite marks and King Shark isn't dead.
Yeah. Which makes me wonder who ended it with whom.
I'm thinking John. I don't really think.
Yeah, John probably did his whole "I'm a tortured soul and no one will ever love me" shtick, or I sadly kill everyone I care about shtick, and then walked away.
Yeah, the emotional intimacy problem.
Yeah, which would explain why King Shark winked as though to say, come here, little guy, I want you back, and so forth. And incidentally speaking, it's someone who swings that way. I don't blame you for a thing, John. I probably would say yes too, if I weren't already in a relationship. Happily. For once.
For some reason, I can still taste the steak I ate. Like it's mixing with the cake.
That is not a mental image I needed, but given all the mental images I've given you over the evening, I will gladly accept it.
What, a steak mixed with a cake?
Yeah, the image of them digesting.
Okay, well, you didn't need to put it like that.
Well, neither did my brain, but such is the haphazard nature of my brain when it gets very, very, very tired.
Okay. Outside of TV, animation and TV, DC is in the midst of turning things around for its extended universe in film. With Birds of Prey and the Okay, hold on. Let me do the voice.
Fantabulous.
Hey, hold it. With Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn coming out in February, and Wonder Woman 1984 coming to theaters, coronavirus permitting, on August 14th. Okay, so it's just, yeah.
I suspect it will have to be moved again. Just saying.
Alright, so last thing Sarkana Gaming has said is, I'm bisexual and have Asperger's, and I don't think that there should be a bi or gay quota. Yeah. If anything, just make great, well-rounded characters that are believable and people can attach
Yeah, and if you're gonna focus so heavily on sexuality, you better give me some good relationships to latch onto. And incidentally, while I'm bitching about the CW and the way it handles that kind of shit, why is it 9 times out of 10 two female characters rather than ever be a male character? Like, okay, when John was first introduced to Legends of Tomorrow in a couple seasons ago, during the Mala storyline, despite the fact that he and alternate universe Captain Cold were hitting up a storm, when it came down to time for there to be a sex scene, it was John and Sarah that ended up screwing. Now there might have been a plot relevant reason for them specifically to screw, because then like John has a link to Sarah's soul because that's how sex works on a metaphysical level. But given that he was also the person to restore her soul in the Arrow episode Haunted, you could have just used that and let John and alternate universe Captain Cold do their thing, because they were very clearly having a moment and it got stolen because we can't show two men doing it, only two women.
Also, that version of Captain Cold was technically engaged in a relationship as well.
Okay, that's a better reason. I'm still annoyed though that like lesbians are the quote unquote marketable gay. because straight men like to imagine two girls fighting over them or having threesomes with them. And we still
Nothing. But I wanted to say, Southern Atomic Gaming says is most stuff is opening up here already, so that's cool.
Where do you live, Ahsoka? Just out of curiosity, like not specifically, but like in general, where?
Yeah, just I know there's a barber shop open where I'm at. Not sure about other stuff. I haven't really done a lot of checking into that. I really need to go on a walk someday soon. Well, a little bit crazy, being cooped up.
Well, madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push. Heath Ledger's Joker reference, if anyone didn't get it.
You'd have to be an idiot not to get it.
Well, yeah, but some people who watch this may not get the joke. So there is the...
Yeah, but if you have to explain the joke, there is no joke.
I don't know. Sometimes when you explain a joke, it can make it even funnier. But
True. And if anyone didn't understand that reference, it's from Mad Love, from the New Adventures of Batman, which was a continuation of Batman the Animated Series.
Mr. and Mrs. J had a little bit of a spat because Harley had to explain a joke, and apparently that is the one thing that the Joker will not allow.
Idaho. Ahsoka, Idaho.
All right. Interesting.
That's not. Oh, no, that's on the other side of the country.
It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. It's small.
God, there's so much. Too much cream, not enough cookies in the cake.
Shame. And now I'm craving a milkshake. I need to remedy that situation, or at least get some milk later.
God, I haven't had a milkshake in years. Now that I think about it. Anyway, yeah, so that's kind of it. Wow, really? Again? Huh.
It's because we haven't been going off on quite as many side tangents as we had been.
Yeah. But yeah, comic recommendations. I'm actually gonna just broaden it to like recommendations in general, like just of good stuff.
Okay. That being said, would actually recommend Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. Pretty much anything where Matt Ryan plays John Constantine is worth watching. And if you haven't seen the NBC Constantine series, it's free on the app called CW Seed, so you may go there and see it. And I assume there's a website as well, so there's that. Also, because we've been focusing so heavily on Sandman and Constantine, the original Hellblazer run still holds up. It is amazing. Basically, everybody who contributed to the British invasion that anyone still knows worked on it at one point, including Neil Gaiman. So, if you haven't read the original Hellblazer, do so. There aren't really any super terrible runs of Constantine, so basically any run of Constantine is pretty alright, but none of them can hold a candle really to the original run in Hellblazer. Also, I know I've said read the Sandman 1,000 times, but I will continue to say it 1,000 more until every single person within the sound of my voice has read the Sandman. So read the Sandman. Read it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm still reading Doom Patrol. It's been kind of a slog to get through because I'm a procrastinator and also I'm just really fucking tired lately.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, again with Sandman, I will recommend that too. And yeah, also a book series as well. The Wheel of Time series, and if anyone doesn't know that, it's an epic fantasy series that is been well renowned for a long time now.
Mm-hmm. And I'll throw in the Dresden Files again, as long as we're recommending fantasy series. In terms of like occult accuracy, I give it about B minus C plus somewhere in there, which is pretty damn good for anything. And it's got noir aspects. It's got basically every variety of supernatural you could want. And the next 2 books are coming out this year, so if you want to get caught up, it's a perfect time to. The first 4 audiobooks are available on YouTube, so find them and listen to them. I did it in about a weekend when I first found them, so they're quick reads. I had been to book 10 by like November, and I only discovered it in October, so that should tell you. I'm not really even a reader of a whole lot of fiction.
All right, so I also need to kind of try and sell Wheel of Time.
Mm-hmm.
So New York Times, because it's written on the back of the cover here. New York Times say Robert Jordan, the author of Wheel of Time, has come to dominate the world. Tolkien began to reveal. It's not said in Lord of the Rings universe. It's just more.
It's another high epic fantasy is the gist of it.
Yeah, and to be fair, there are 14 books in the series.
And there are currently 15, soon to be 17 in the Dresden Files, not counting the spin-offs, of which there are like 2. So, yeah.
Right, but I've heard so many good things, and there's a series. Well, apparently it's good enough to be made into a series on Amazon. So.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately for the Dresden Files, the only adaptation of series it got was a terrible sci-fi original series back when that was a death sentence in the early 2000s. Don't watch the show, guys. And in fact, if anyone's opinion of the Dresden Files has been tainted by the show, jettison the show from your mind. It was cancer. It had about as much in common with the Dresden Files as Halle Berry's Catwoman movie had in common with Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the record.
And I will also, Eric Breen is here. Just time for us to close up shop. Just watched the Constantine movie, and all I can say is, Matt, who?
Why must you make me thrive with murderous rage just as we are about to finish, Eric? I am too ungodly tired for this shit. I got 5 hours of sleep despite the fact that I went to bed at midnight, exactly. So, Please, don't make me have to murder you or make elaborate saw trap plans to murder you. I don't have the mental fortitude at the moment.
Right. So I will just read an epic lines that encapsulate the whole series. I think it's supposed to be like a prophecy. The wheel of time turns, ages come and pass. What was, what will be, and what is may yet fall under the shadow. Let the dragon ride again on the winds of time. And with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom, and don't buy into Nonstantine. Fuck off.